The Mayans are an interesting people, known for their complex calendars, their ridiculous tendency to put up hieroglyphs on virtually anything, and for their mysterious disappearance in the 9th century. They have left plenty of history for archaeologists to uncover. If you're new here, I'm Darius and this is Vlogs on Knowledge. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we do have brand new episodes every single Wednesday, and today we're talking about the Mayan Civilization. Now, I'm going to assume that you've all heard of the Mayan Civilization. I think we can all remember when the world was supposed to end on December 21st, 2012. That came directly from the Mayan calendar because it was on that date that the calendar stopped. However, you have to be careful not to confuse the Mayans with the Aztecs or the Incas, both of which are totally different civilizations that not only lived in a different location but also in a different time period. The Incas came much later in the 13th century AD in modern-day Peru, and the Aztecs around the same time in modern-day Mexico. The Mayans, however, are said to have been the biggest and most influential civilizations in what historians now call Mesoamerica. Mesoamerica is a simple way to define the Americas before the Spanish conquest in the 16th century, and this Spanish conquest is very important, but we'll talk more about that later. Let's start first with locations. The Mayans were largely centered in the Yucatan Peninsula, part of modern-day Mexico, as well as parts of Guatemala and Belize. The tropical location allowed for agriculture to develop, most notably the growing of many crops such as maize, beans, and other vegetables, and for rivers to form, which was crucial in allowing transportation by canoe later on. Mayan history dates back to somewhere between the year 8000 BC and 2000 BC, which historians have now called the Archaic period. During this time, a group of hunter-gatherer people began to settle down to develop agriculture and domesticate animals. This radical shift in lifestyle gave rise to the very first villages and settlements of the then Mayan civilization. These small tribes of nomads, wandering around from location to location, had finally learned the art of settling down, planting a crop, and waiting for the harvest. Towards the end of the Archaic period, you had small local villages start to pop up around the territory. They included sacred spots and temples dedicated to the various gods of the time. Keep in mind that there is nothing particularly interesting or remarkable from the Mayans from this time. They were, just like their neighbors across the ocean, in the process of developing their culture into what was to later become a fully grown civilization. What follows is the next period in Mayan history, the pre-classical period. While they were already settled, cultivating their crops and living in small villages, another civilization was rising to the west, the Olmecs. The Olmecs settled along the Gulf of Mexico and began building great cities of stone and brick. And not only did they build great cities, but they were also one of the first in Mesoamerica to create sculptures, which we now refer to as the Olmec heads. These pieces of art suggest a highly sophisticated skill in sculpture and even point us to the first indications of shamanic religious practices. But they also posed a very interesting question to modern-day archaeologists. Why are these sculptures so big? I mean, look at them. They're huge. Since they were so big, at first we thought that these Olmecs might be giants. I mean, it's a good guess, but later on we discovered that they were not. The Olmecs are an interesting civilization because no one knows where they came from nor what happened to them. The evidence doesn't really allow us to be fully conclusive, but the Olmecs are believed to have brought forth many traditions and rituals that would dominate the later cultures of Mesoamerica. They are believed to have been the first in the Western Hemisphere to develop writing, to perform human sacrifices with human blood, to develop the long count calendar, which we'll talk about later, and to play the Mesoamerican ball game that we found to be a central aspect of Mayan culture. That game, that the Mayans called Pacatak, was a central part in their culture. I mean, this wasn't just a game that people played for fun recreationally. This was a game that had serious religious implications that often ended up in people dying as a result of the score in the game. Allow me to explain. You can think of it like soccer. You have two teams, a rubber ball, and a sort of net. Now this net is a little different. It was more like a basketball hoop, attached maybe on a wall somewhere. The net could be as high up as 20 feet, and the goal was to get the rubber ball through the net. Now here's the catch. You weren't allowed to use your hands nor your feet, which, as you can imagine, made it extremely difficult to score a goal. And as a result, games would often go on for days, and as soon as one person scored, it was considered the end of the game and that his team had won. Now, I said that the game involves sacrifice. Historians are still unsure of who was actually being sacrificed, whether it be the captain of the losing team or the captain of the winning team, or sometimes even the entire team, whether it be the winners or the losers, but at least they can all agree that usually somebody was killed at the end of the game. This game represented the natural cycle and movement of life, and for the Mayans, sacrifice was a central part of life. They didn't believe in the traditional beginning and end of time. Instead, they believed that everything functioned in cycles and that nothing ever died or ceased to exist. Sacrifices were seen as simply passing on to the next phase in the cycle, whether it be going through the underworld and ascending through the 9 levels found there, or possibly trying to get to heaven but having to pass through the 13 levels to get there. The Mayans had absolutely no problem with offering human sacrifices. Their religion involved several aspects of nature, astronomy, and rituals. Most gods represented a form in nature, for example the sun god or maize god, which came directly from the maize that was the essential part in Mayan diet. They were polytheistic and worshipped somewhere around 165 different gods. The years went by, and slowly these small villages and communities turned into larger urban centers. After the turn of the millennium, around the year 250 AD, we entered the period known as the Classical period, and this is the period that most of us think about when talking about the Mayans. The villages that had been built in the previous centuries were now turning to massive cities housing tens of thousands of inhabitants, and just like the Egyptians, large pyramid structures were built, and the Mayan cities that have marveled modern-day archaeologists for so long had finally been created. And these pyramids were mostly built for religious purposes. One purpose was to serve as a place to offer sacrifices to the gods. Another one might have been to represent the Mayan aspiration of reaching heaven by building vertically. Now, when looking at these buildings, perhaps the most obvious thing that one sees when looking at them is the fact that hieroglyphic script is everywhere. It's no secret that the Mayan culture was heavily artistic, and their hieroglyphs are the key to us understanding their history and their ideologies. For the longest time, these hieroglyphs were thought to be indecipherable. We thought we had too few remaining texts, too few remaining examples to properly identify what these writings mean. But in the 1980s, some very smart people slowly began to crack the code. We realized that the Mayans were big believers in documenting their own history. Large carvings found in front of temples have been deciphered to reveal the long history of the different rulers of the temple they were representing. You literally had each ruler's date of birth, the day they ascended to the throne, their important life events, and their eventual death. Having made these discoveries, archaeologists were then able to build a sort of dictionary with hieroglyphs that would help them decipher even more of these carvings. We learned about their culture, their religious beliefs, their daily rituals, and we were finally able to decipher the famous Mayan calendar, which has confused people for many centuries. The discoveries that we've made about the Mayans tell us that they were a very advanced civilization capable of great mathematics and astronomy. When we realized that their calendar ends on December 21st, 2012, it's normal that people got scared about a potential end of the world scenario. The end date, contrary to the paranoia that happened in 2012 and as we've discovered, does not indicate the end of time. It in fact indicates the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one, which fits perfectly with the idea that cycles were the primary aspect of the universe in Mayan culture. So no guys, don't worry, we're still stuck on Earth, at least for now. For about 700 years, they thrived and advanced. They were able to predict solar eclipses, to calculate the precise position of Venus at all times, and for the most part left a very thorough written record of all of their advancements. But this civilization has something strange to it. In the 9th century AD, most of their big cities were abandoned. The Mayans simply decided to leave. Now we don't know why exactly, perhaps it was the deforestation that they caused or a drought that made agriculture very difficult, which some evidence might suggest, or it might simply be a religious reason, we don't know. The truth is that we probably would have known why, and also generally we would have known a whole lot more about the Mayans than we do now, had it not been for the fact that most of their texts and books were burned by the Spanish in the 16th century AD. When Spain came to the New World, they saw the Mayans and other cultures as inferior people that could be used, and most importantly, people that could be converted to Catholicism. Catholicism was the Spanish religion and they were very adamant on converting people to it. And if you know a little bit about Spanish history, this was in the middle of the Spanish Inquisition, which, well, was horrible. They came, they burned their books and converted them to Catholicism and pretty much destroyed their vast, rich culture. Although some of it survived and went underground, it underwent a profound transformation. I mean, it's hard to keep your religion and culture when you have Spain, who's more sophisticated and dangerous, dedicated to making sure that you lose it. The Mayans still remain today and still perform some of these same rituals of their ancestors, but you can definitely see the Spanish influence. Their culture has become a sort of mix of both, washed down and transformed throughout the years. It is unfortunate that this happened, but it did. The only thing that we can do now is work with what we have and try to keep discovering this interesting civilization. And now I want to pass the question on to you guys. What do you think about the Mayan civilization? What do you think about the fact that Spain came and literally destroyed everything? Please do leave me a comment. I would love to read and answer them all. And bonus points for you if you do leave a comment. As always, you get a chance to be featured in next week's video as a fan of the week. Now, as you know, and as I say at the end of every video, I haven't talked about everything regarding the Mayan civilization. That's okay. I'm actually doing this on purpose to get you guys to go out and research more on your own. Because I believe in research and I believe in getting you guys educated on the subject. It's the whole reason why I do this show. And for those curious that want to learn more about the Mayan civilization, as always, you'll find links in the description where you can start. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for giving your time to me rambling about the Mayan civilization. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, join Team Knowledge, and be notified whenever I release a new video. And with that being said, my name has been Darius and it's been an absolute pleasure. You can follow me on social media. The links will be in the description. And I will see you all next Wednesday.